Woody and I.
Good morning. It's 10 a.m. We're ready to call the board meeting to order. Ms. Cicchetti, would you please call the roll?
Good morning, Vice Chair Schaefer. The roll. Vice Chair Schaefer?
Aye.
Member Gaines?
Aye.
Member Lieber?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Controller Cohen?
Aye. Present.
A quorum is present. The board meeting is called to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Cicchetti, would you please announce our first order of business?
Good morning, Vice Chair Schaefer and members. The board meeting information announcement is as follows. First, I'd like to remind the audience to silence your cell phones and any other wireless devices. The current COVID-19 guidelines for the Board of Equalization strongly encourage, but no longer mandatory, that all BOE employees must wear a mask while inside any BOE facility while attending any BOE event. If needed, supplies of masks and hand sanitizer are available and can be found in the back of the auditorium. Public comment is taken on each agenda item. The public will be invited to comment during the matters before the board. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak before the board on an agenda item in person, we ask that you complete and submit to the Sergeant of Arms a public comment appearance sheet located at the entrance of the auditorium. If you wish to speak before the board by telephone, please dial the phone number and access code provided on our public agenda notice and follow the instructions of the AT&T moderator. If you intend to make a public comment using the AT&T moderator, we recommend dialing into the meeting on the teleconference line prior to the beginning of the agenda item you wish to make a comment. We recommend this as the audio broadcast on our website experiences a 1 to 3 minute delay between the live stream and the live event. When giving public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. The order that the board identifies public comments at the conclusion of an agenda item is as follows. I will first identify any public comment requests that have been received by board proceedings in the auditorium. Then I will identify any public comments received on the AT&T moderator. And lastly, we will read into the record any public comments received in writing. This concludes the information announcement. Thank you.
Mr. Cicchetti, please call our first item.
Our first agenda item is item 1, Chief Counsel Matters 1A, Organization of the Board, Election of the new Chair and Vice Chair effective immediately. This item will be presented by Mr. Nanjo.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Schaefer, honorable members of the board. My name is Henry Nanjo. I'm the Chief Counsel, and as you may recall, at the November 2022 board meeting, the board amended its governance policy to address the election of the chair and vice chair during a gubernatorial election year. This amendment deferred the election of the chair and vice chair until after the duly elected board members are sworn into office. Consistent with this governance policy, this agenda item is for the board to elect a chair and vice chair to serve for the January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023 term, and will become effective immediately upon the election of both the chair and the vice chair. This conversation is a member-to-member discussion where a member may choose to nominate another member or themselves for chair or vice chair. Additionally, members, it is your pleasure whether to elect a chair and vice chair together or separately. I have a few procedural reminders before the board begins today's discussion. As you may remember, there is no limit on serving consecutive terms, and in the event of a tied vote for either or both positions, as the case may be, the 2022 chair or vice chair would ordinarily continue to serve for the 2023 term pursuant to the governance policy. However, in this instance, the current chair would be unable to serve due to her newly elected position as state controller. Thus, the current vice chair would become chair for the 2023 term. At this time, I turn it over to you, Vice Chair Schaefer, to continue with this item.
Thank you, Mr. Nanjo. I have a question. Does the nomination require a second? I would not think so, because that would give members a veto power over anyone being nominated.
Yes, traditionally, this board has not required a second for the nominations, so only one nomination is necessary.
And a member can nominate more than one person?
Yes.
Thank you. First, we will open the nominations for board chair. This is an open nomination process, meaning any one of us may nominate themselves or another member for chair. We could also nominate themselves and another member. Once all nominations have been made, each nominee will have 3 minutes to make a statement. Then Mr. Ketty will call the roll, and each member will respond by stating the name of the member they are voting for to serve as chair or abstain from voting. Members, to support an orderly process, I respectfully request that you hold your questions and comments until you are called upon. If a member receives the requisite number of votes, that member will be elected as chair. If no candidate receives the required number of votes, the board may discuss whether to reconsider any or all nominations. If no member receives the requisite number of votes, a tie may be declared, consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. I will now open the nominations for the election of chair for the 2023 term. I would, Ms. Lieber?
I'd like to nominate Member Vasquez as chair.
Thank you. That nomination is accepted. I would like to make 2 nominations. I would like to nominate a man who has been chair for about 10 minutes at the very start of our last term, Senator Gaines. I believe this is a nonpartisan activity that we do for the public, and it should make no difference whether he's a Republican or Democrat. And I'd like to nominate myself on the grounds that I received like 1.3 million votes for re-election, a 60% strong vote, which tells me that the public likes what I'm doing. I have never served as chair, and out of respect for elders, I should be, I am the oldest constitutional officer in the history of the state of California. And also, I may not be around here next year, God willing. The Lord gives me good health, I will be. But, you know, I'd like to put that in my obituary that I had been chair. And also, you need me because I have a sense of humor. I make you laugh, all right? So I have made these 2 nominations. So that's Ted and Mike.
Mr. Chair,
Is there any further?
I'd like to make a nomination.
Yes, Ms. Cohen, please.
Thank you. Since we're making nominations, we should just make a full house. I'd like to nominate myself. Just kidding. I don't want to nominate myself. But I would like to enter the name for consideration, our new member, Sally Lieber. She's an outstanding leader, has incredible leadership skills, and I know it may seem a little daunting to come into a new body. We've experienced that 4 years. But don't discount yourself. I'd like to nominate member Sally Lieber. Thank you.
Yes, right. I appreciate that. You're a very competent candidate. Our very first meeting, I mentioned Ted Gaines was chair for about 10 minutes, so you know, you don't have to have experience.
Can I put that in my obituary? Just curious.
Is there any further nominations, Mr. Vasquez?
No, good.
Senator Gaines? No nominations. Well, we have the nominations of Member Vasquez, Member Gaines, Member Schaefer, and Member Lieber. So everybody but Ms. Cohen has been nominated. Thank you for your participating. Mr. Ketty, would you lead the list of names who have been nominated to serve as chair?
Alrighty, the nominations are Member Vasquez, Member Gaines, Vice Chair Schaefer, and Member Lieber. This would be an opportunity if anybody, if the Vice Chair would like to afford the members, if they wanted to give a small presentation about why they should be elected.
Right, thank you. I think I've already given that presentation, but I would want my colleagues to have their 3 minutes. Mr. Vasquez, would you share with us why we should vote for you?
Sure.
You've held the job several times, so
Yes.
you are the most experienced candidate.
Exactly, and that's what I would really like to bring back to the table, especially as we move forward. And I think the synergy on this new board, especially with the new member, Ms. Sally Lieberman, who was previously on the Assembly, I would look forward to working with her leadership as well as our retired Senator, Mr. Gaines, because I think, you know, these last 4 years between myself and now our controller, Ms. Cohen, I think we did a pretty good job of getting us out of what I consider hot water when we first got elected in 2018. And now we're in a situation where I think we're thriving. The staffing has been real good in terms of filling vacancies. And I'm looking forward to now really taking this board to the next level and to expand it. Because I think at the end of the day, and I think many of us have experienced it in our respective districts, we're hearing more and more from our constituents, especially in the tax community, things that we need to do and possibly bring back with some authority of this board moving forward. As I see some of the small businesses that are still being hampered or punished, really, because in many cases they don't have the skill sets to weather the storm. And I think it should be our role here as the BOE to provide as much guidance and technical assistance to make sure that they thrive and survive. Because if you look at the state of California, I think it's about 80% of the folks that are employed in the state are employed by small businesses. And I think we need to do whatever we can to make sure that not only that they survive, but that they grow. And I'm hoping with this new board, we can continue that. And I think the other thing that's real big on, especially the governor's agenda, and it's been on ours as well when we've done these hearings, is the whole affordable housing piece. And I think we're almost there. And I believe this next couple of years, especially this year coming in, we should be able to put a lot of our hearings and the input that we got from most of our partners to really make this come to fruition and be a real resource for those, not only in the nonprofit world, but also in the for-profit world, developers that are interested in building true affordable housing. So I'm hoping with your support, I can continue that leadership and hopefully make not only the BOE, but also those folks at the Capitol here real proud of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vasquez. I would then call on Senator Gaines. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been an honor to serve on the Board of Equalization for the last 4 years. I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of, in many ways, moving forward with a Board of Equalization that is very different than what it was actually when we were running for election. And our primary focus now is property, and we have our oversight duties with our county assessors and also working in collaboration with them. And it's been, I think, a good relationship, and it's been an opportunity for renewal for the Board of Equalization. Our focus for each board member, I think, was to make sure that we operated this board in a transparent way with the new reforms that came into place. and I think we've done that. And but not only to operate transparently, but also to operate with a vision of additional things that the BOE can do. And we've had opportunities to take a look at the housing issue, which clearly is a crisis here in the state of California. And I think we're going to continue that based on conversations that we've had, and we should do so. I want to thank members Vasquez and Cohen for moving forward in those areas. We've got, I think, other opportunities to take a look where we might be able to help out taxpayers, especially smaller businesses in the state of California. And my hope would be that we could maybe take a look at some of the duties that we used to have. And wouldn't it be nice to have an appeal process for smaller business owners and just taxpayers that don't know the way, can't afford an attorney or an advocate to help them out. And I think those are things that we can handle in a very judicious manner and provide a little grace to our constituents, because government often is very opaque and very impersonal, and I think we can do so much better than that. Of course, any ability of me to serve as chair is a difficult challenge, and that really relies on my colleagues and their willingness to give someone from across the aisle the opportunity to serve in that capacity. So I feel that maybe there'll be that opportunity at some point during the second term. But either way, I'm going to serve my constituents and serve the state of California and do the best job I can, work with my colleagues, and make the BOE better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gaines. Member Lieber, you're the new kid on the block, and you bring legislative experience to us like Senator Gaines, and I appreciate that. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Thank you so much. And I was really fortunate to overlap in the State Assembly with Mr. Gaines and to have the benefit of working with him. And I'm so honored to be nominated by our state controller. I want to put that out in social media right away.
Put that in your obituary.
But as the vice chair mentioned, I am the new kid on the block, and I'm looking forward in the subsequent months to come to casting off the training wheels and really getting up to full speed with the board. So I'd like to defer to the members who have been here longer, but it's really a special moment to be nominated by someone who I have so much respect for. I don't think that Ms. Cohen, our state controller, knows this, but on my desk at home, I have a business card that she gave me the very first time that I met her, and wrote down the date and said, "Met Malia Cohen in SF today." And that was several years ago, before your start on the Board of Supervisors. But she is a California treasure, and it is so incredible to see the growth that she's gone through and taking her rightful place, serving our state very, very well. So thank you so much.
So kind.
Thank you, Member Lieber. I had made my original comments. I do want to say that for most of our 150 some odd years as existence, we have had a rotation basis for picking the chair. It's gone from member to member to member to member, and we have changed that, but that doesn't mean the old system is bad. And I do have a second to my nomination from Claude Parrish, who is the assessor of one of our biggest counties. He has called me up and said he was going to write each member a letter endorsing the idea of member to member to member to follow the consecutive order of chair to for the chair to pass. I don't think he's done that, but he is a Republican and I am a Democrat, and he approves everything I'm doing, and he has no hesitancy to talk me up, and I'm very proud of that. And I'd hope that I'd have some other support from people at that watch us, even though I am a little bit, I do rattle cages sometimes. People in Southern California sent me up here to do something, not just sit. I want to mention also that in the past, boards, they have had a member be the chair for many, many years in succession, and that's not necessarily good. I do think it's nice to have a breath of fresh air once in a while, and it's my job, if I were chair, to bring out the best of our members rather than to feel that it's Mike's board, and it isn't. It's the members' board, and we are the cheerleader for our colleagues. Thank you for your presentations, Mr. Cuddy. Do we have any public comments on this item?
We have nobody in the audience and no written comments. I'm going to go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, can you please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
And if you do have a public comment at this time, it is 1 followed by 0. And there are no lines in queue.
Thank you.
I don't want to always be the contrarian, but I don't think the public has a right to a place at the table when it comes to nominations of the board. I think the issue of who wields the gavel is strictly an in-house housekeeping matter, and I'm appalled to see that the city of San Diego, in picking their president of their city council, spent, I think, 8 hours into the wee hours of the morning listening to 150 members of the public come and give their opinions on who should be chosen. And there was a candidate that had the overwhelming choice of all the people that spoke during 8 hours, and the city council promptly voted for the other person and installed them. There are certain things that Bagley-Keene does not have anything to do with, and in my opinion, that's election of the board, but until we have a court tell us that, we're going to do it as we are doing it, and Mr. Nanjo appreciates that, and I am a get along, go along on stuff that affects our legal image. Thank you. Now we will proceed to vote. Members, when Mr. Cuddy calls your name, would you please state the name of your selection for chair?
All righty. Please state the name of the selection of the chair when I call your name. Vice Chair Schaefer?
I will vote for myself.
Member Gaines?
Aye?
You have
Am
to.
I voting for are we voting
Yes, you have to.
for chair?
For the chair.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, so I'm an aye.
Yes, but we have a selection of names. You have to name the person you'd like to vote for.
Okay, so of the ones that
We have-
presented, I will
yes.
vote for myself.
Oh, okay. Member Lieber?
Mr. Vasquez.
Member Vasquez?
Member Vasquez.
Controller Cone?
Member Vasquez.
The votes are 3 for Member Vasquez, 1 for Member Schaefer, and 1 for Member Gaines. Therefore, we have enough votes for Mr. Vasquez, so the candidate Vasquez has been elected to serve as the chair of the board.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I might note we have the most experienced chair we've ever had. Hey, I'm
This
fired.
time, the new chair will be taking over for the remainder of the meeting. We'll get him situated. Mr. Nanjo, did you want to begin this one, or have Mr. Vasquez continue?
No, Mr. Vasquez can continue. I want to thank Vice Chair Schaefer. You did a wonderful job. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you, and
sir.
you're going to see where you're sitting.
Does it matter where we sit, or should we switch?
No, at this point, I'd recommend continuing with the vote of Vice Chair, and then once that's completed, we can take a short break and rearrange everything.
Okay, first of all, thank you to my colleagues, and especially our new controller. I'm looking forward to working with you, and I know you've been real active on the board, and I'm assuming you're going to be real active with the BOE, and I'm looking forward to, especially many of the projects that we started over these last 4 years, to now make sure that we follow through and see them happen. Because I think, especially on the affordable housing front, and then on the modernization that you started many years ago, and with the leadership of our new member, I think we're in a real good position to make sure these things really happen. With that, let me begin or open up with our vice chair nominations. I would like to open the floor to any nominations people have for vice chair. And I will open up, and I think our controller, Member Cohen, really hit it on the nail. You know, I would like to encourage, I know she wasn't interested in running for chair, but maybe she's hopefully interested in working with me as the vice chair. So I'd like to nominate Sally Lieber as my vice chair coming into this new year, 2023. And with that, I'll open it up to hear if there's any other nominations from any of the other members.
I'll
I would-
second that nomination.
I'm sorry?
I'll second that
I
nomination.
appreciate it.
I would nominate myself on the grounds that that's all I know how to do. And on the further grounds that it's time for Southern California to be recognized. And the way to recognize Southern California is elect the great Los Angeles man as chair and the San Diego man as vice chair. Thank you.
Any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, Ms. Kelly, do we need to, we don't have any public comment on this, do we?
Well, we should, our normal procedure is to go out for public comment.
Let's ask AT&T.
Okay, so first let me make a list of the nominations so that we know who we have there. We have Ms. Lieber or Vice Chair Schaefer are up for the two nominations. And so we don't have any public comments in the auditorium or anything in writing that we've received on this item, so I'm going to go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item.
And there are no lines in queue at this time.
Thank you.
And with that, you know, I guess we should afford an opportunity for Ms. Lieberman to give us her take on what she sees coming into the year 2023 as our vice chair.
Well, thank you so much. And it's such an incredible honor just to be elected to the office of being on the board at all. When you look at the fact that out of 42 million Californians, the five of us have been selected, it's very, very humbling. And I am really looking forward to working with everyone up here, and if I am selected as vice chair, I'll put all of my effort into that, and the priorities of this board, many of which Ms. Cohn worked on very hard last year, are going to continue and come forward into this year, and I'm very excited about those priorities. In particular, among what's been mentioned, the affordable housing, and what kind of tax exemptions could be offered to increase the amount of the missing middle housing, and also the assistance for the small businesses that has been mentioned by Mr. Gaines and by our new chair is really critically important. That's the heart and soul of California. And particularly in our rural areas, and making sure that we cover all of the ground in California and all of the needs and all of the potential that is there. So thank you so much for the nomination, and if I'm selected, I am definitely willing to serve as vice chair.
Thank you.
And
Vice Chair Schaefer.
I'd like to point out that just because Sally's a new kid on the block doesn't mean she doesn't know what's going on. She served with great distinction in the state assembly down the street, so she really is an old-timer as far as we're concerned in government. I'd also like to state that I think the job of the vice chair is to make the chair look good, And I've concentrated on doing that for Malaya, and I've been very successful because she got a promotion. Thank you.
That's very clever. That is very, very clever.
You like that spin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, with that, Mrs. Cheney, you would, what do I guess, yeah, you would just.
Yeah, I'll name the
I'll
two
let you
people
call
and
the-
I'll ask everyone,
election.
yes. So the two people who have been nominated for the vice chair is Vice Chair Schaefer and Ms. Lieber. When I call your name, please state your vote. Vice Chair Schaefer?
I vote for myself.
Member Gaines?
I support Member Lieber with all due respect to Mr. Schaefer. I think you've done a good job serving as vice chair, but I think there's an opportunity here. I think there's an opportunity here to work in these areas that you had discussed and I discussed, and so I am in support of Sally Lieber. Thank you.
Member Lieber?
I'll vote for Lieber.
Member Vasquez?
Member Lieber?
Controller Cohen?
Thank you. I'm honored to support Sally Lieber.
Very good.
I've changed my vote to vote for Sally Lieber.
So that's a unanimous
Yes.
vote. It was Lieber. Congratulations, Vice Chair Lieber.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I believe you want to take a little, 5-minute break?
Yes.
Before
Thank you.
before we take a break, may
Oh,
I say
yes,
some
go ahead.
few
I'm sorry.
remarks?
Sure. You.
Thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge all the members of the public and say good morning to and Happy New Year. It's good to be back and to see the staff on this body. I'd like to offer my congratulations to the newly voted chair and vice chair. And as a board, your work in this administration of an $85 billion property tax system ensures that our schools and local government continue to have the much-needed resources and critical resources that they need. And what I also want to note is the reputation and the integrity of the Board of Equalization, that we continue to strive to repair and build. This board has remained steadfast and constant despite challenges. The board continues to make significant strides to preserve the nation's only elected tax board, and I think that's important to note. And I want to also acknowledge that the future begins here today, similar to the remarks that I said at the swearing in, and that the incoming board renews its commitment to public service and that it maintains its commitment to be efficient and effective and, most above all, fair when it comes to the administration of property tax here in the great state of California. We've got 40 million residents depending on all of us to do our job, to come to work ready to give it our 110% of our efforts. And I just wanted to also publicly affirm that in my new role as state controller, I consider it a privilege to continue my service on this body. And I remain committed and will continue to work with you to prioritize the items that we still need to get done. And also prioritizing the needs of taxpayers. So I look forward to working with you, to supporting you, and want to acknowledge Executive Director Stowers and your executive team as you continue to build and make transitions. You're doing it with grace. And I think this new era will be our moment. And I also want to acknowledge Deputy Controller coming in my steadfast, Hasib Emran. Should be a familiar face. He was on my staff when I was on the Board of Equalization, and he will do an amazing job. It will be fully present and engaged, and we are both ready to go. So with that, I close my remarks, and I thank you for allowing me a few minutes just to say a few thoughts that are on my mind and on my heart. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. With that, I guess we could take a little
Just before we
5-minute
go
break.
to recess, can I just ask one thing?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
I just wanted to, just for the record, our chair for the 2023 term is Member Vasquez, and our vice chair for the 2023 term is Ms. Lieber. Just wanted to make sure we got that on the record before we move forward.
Thank you. So we will stand in recess for 5 minutes, and then we'll be right back.
Okay, good. Thank you.
to order. And let me start with Ms. Cicchetti to let us know where we're at.
Where we're at, okay. The next item on the agenda is item 2, special introductions. Introduction of new and returning chief deputies and assistant to board members.
Yes, members, I know there's been a lot of shifts, especially with the election of a new controller, and then, of course, a new member to the board. I've been fortunate enough to be able to hold on to most of my staff, but I did have one change. One of my chief of staff, who you all know, and was very involved and very dedicated, not only to the BOE, but to me as a board member, as a new board member, Kari Hammond, who had decided to retire. I was hoping that she was going to hang on, but she had, I know she was hoping to do that a lot sooner. And luckily, she was able to at least stick it out for my first term, because she was very helpful. And if she's out there listening, I just wanted her to know that she's going to be sorely missed. She was so, like I mentioned, not only with me as a new board member, but she had such good relationships with many of our staff members here, and provided a very good service to the community, to our taxpayers, and she's going to be sorely missed. But with that comes a new opportunity. I was fortunate enough to be able to hire a new chief deputy in Deborah Bautista Zavala, who's with us today. And I don't know if for those that are viewing might be able to see her. She's standing up in the back. Some of you have met her probably through Zoom or through Teams, but now you see her in the flesh. And she's been great. She comes with a lot of experience at the Capitol. I haven't had the opportunity to work with several legislative members at the Assembly side, and I believe even on the Senate side as well. And she's pretty close to Sacramento. I believe she lives in Woodland, so it's not too far of a commute. So hopefully you'll see her a lot, not only at our board meetings, but in the community here. And I'm looking forward to her expertise, because she had been very involved leading and lobbying, most recently with the LAUSD school district on educational programs and funding. And I'm hoping she'll bring that expertise to us as we look to possibly work with some of our legislators, both on the Assembly side and the Senate side, to move some of our agenda items that was mentioned earlier by our controller, and by Member Gaines, things that we were able to start. And now I think some of it is going to probably be put on us, and hopefully on some of our expertise and many of our staffers that we have in the different districts here, to take it to the next level, and that might require some legislation. So I'm hoping, and I know she'll be an asset in that area for us. With that, let me turn it over to, I'll start with the new member, because she probably has the most changes here. I'll start with our vice chair, Sally Lieber.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to recognize the incoming staff, a couple of whom are familiar faces, to folks here. Not with us today because he's on the mend from an illness is Mr. Gary Gartner, who I think is known to everybody here and just about everybody in California. And in with us today is Mr. John Thiela, who's our attorney, who's in the back. And my special assistant, who is always my wingman, Mr. Jordan Eldridge, who is here with us today. And in his short time with working with me with the board, I think has become known to many people as being a very helpful and knowledgeable person. He's worked in the state legislatures in a couple of different states now. And then also we have Ms. Kimberly Jacobs, who is continuing with our district as well. And I'm very much looking forward to working with all the staffs of all of my colleagues. I've been really pleased to see everyone who are working within the different offices and have really good collegial relationships with them, and so I look forward to that going forward. And I'm also so pleased to discover what quality there is in the staff of the BOE. And it's been a really pleasant journey so far, getting to know everyone and to find out how much expertise and knowledge and ethics and a good spirit of service there is. So I think that we have all the tools that are ready to do very good work here for the people of the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let me go back to the top of the order here with our first district, Member Gaines, to share any comments on changes in his staff.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just an aside, if I could, I hope Gary is doing well with his,
Yes.
he's recovering well. And I spoke to him this morning on the drive down. Seems like he is doing well, so I'm encouraged by that. But yes, thank you for the opportunity to introduce my staff. And first of all, my chief of staff is Matt Cox. And next to him is Betsy Hodges. And they both started work for me on the same day in 2011 in the state legislature. So I'm really blessed to have them with me. They've done a great job. Matt has been just an awesome chief of staff and helping me figure it all out and do it right. And Betsy is my communications person, and she's just been wonderful. And it's nice to have the luxury of having that consistency. And took a little while to get them both over here, but it's fortunate that that's all come together. Rounding out my team, I've got some good folks. I've got Barbara Buss, who helps me with constituent issues, and she's been at the BOE for a number of years, very experienced, and she's got a real light touch with our constituents and trying to help them out. Because let's face it, we're elected officials, and I feel that it's really our duty to make sure that we are connecting the dots for our constituents, and it doesn't matter, right, if it's local, state, or federal, we ought to be trying to help folks out. So that's great. And then Lee Williams, he's a veteran. He's been around for a number of years at the BOE, and he's really our technical expert, and we rely on him to help us weigh through many of the technical aspects of what happens here at the Board of Equalization. And then Bill Cardoza is working part-time for me, and he just helps out with things that are district related. And he's an old hand too, and done that for quite a while. So I'm very fortunate to have this great staff. Thank you.
Welcome. With that, let me move on to our member Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair. As to Gary Gardner, he had a touch of fatigue and he was hospitalized for a few days, but he is just as garrulous as ever. Last Saturday, he was all over his phone telling me what events to go to, what I should wear, and what time I should be there. And I'm not surprised that he's been talking to all of you guys. So I'm very glad that we'll have him to help us through Ms. Lieber's office. We said goodbye to Sue Blake, who is my chief counsel, who's retired. I have Michelle Harrison continuing in my office. She's famous for being the mother of 5 daughters, could you believe? And she keeps the office running. Bridger Langfer, would you raise your hand, Bridger? He's the best-dressed guy in our office, and he has a good background in teaching and education, and he's really been a blessing to be in our office. He has been our number 2 in staff, and he's going to be number 1 in about a half hour because Cody's got to go to the airport. And I'm saving the best for last. Mr. Cody Pedersen, you see a former staffer sitting up here. You're going to see Cody sitting up here someday, too, because he's a chief of staff that's going places. He is an elected official in his own right, and none of the staff members can say that. He was recently elected to the San Diego Unified School District, and he has gone through the battle of campaigns. They put out $100,000 worth of hit pieces on him, showing a cartoon of somebody was a puppeteer and he was a little puppet, being directed around. I thought that was funny, and he thought it was funny too, and I think the voters thought it was funny, and they voted in him overwhelmingly. His mother is a well-known doctor and famous in politics as a Democratic activist, as is Cody. And Cody spent a year or two living in Peru getting a doctorate degree in anthropology. How many of us have been to Peru? I'm very pleased with that. Cody, I'm very proud of you, and he just gave me a salute, and I just want you to remember Cody Pedersen. That's a name that you're going to be hearing for decades. Thank you.
Welcome. And you reminded me, Member Schaefer, that actually my new chief of staff is also an elected official on a school board here locally. She currently sits on, she's a school board trustee and clerk for the Woodland Joint Unified School District.
I stand corrected on that, then.
That's why I wanted to bring it out.
That's a requirement to be a chief of staff. You got to be on the school board.
She just got reelected with no opposition. Shows you how well she's doing in her community. And with that, let me turn it over to, I didn't realize, I was remiss earlier, I didn't realize that our controller, Member Cohen, had to leave before she could do a more formal introduction. But with that, rather than me butcher your name, I want to have you introduce yourself. And most of us know him because he's been here, and he's worked actually when the controller now, when she was still a member to this board, and he served her well. And welcome. And let me have you give a formal introduction.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First, I just want to thank the controller, Malia Cohen, for bestowing this opportunity on me. I'm very humbled by this appointment, and I look forward to working with the members here. I want to first congratulate you, Chair Vasquez, on your appointment, and to Member Liebert, now Vice Chair. It's an incredible opportunity, and to the other board members, Senator Gaines and Member Mike Schaefer. Really looking forward to the old faces I see here and some of the new faces. Really excited for this new term here. I feel like we can continue the work and the momentum that the Board of Equalization has moving into this new term and really taking this board to new heights. My name is Hasib Emran. I'm a Deputy State Controller for Taxation. I'm an attorney. I was an attorney here at the Board of Equalization. I've been working with Malia, the controller, for the past 8 years now, and just really incredibly excited to continue this work. Thank you.
Welcome. Looking forward to your input and your expertise as we move forward. With that, when we first opened up the meeting, I was remiss. I wanted to make some opening remarks, and I'll turn it over to the members as well before we start and we get back on track with the agenda. And many of you, I'm sure, have heard this, and it just so happened to happen in my district, this tragedy that took place in Monterey Park this last week. And then in my conversation, I was actually on the steps of the Capitol yesterday with many of the legislators, the Asian American community elected officials hosted a kind of a unity and support press conference yesterday at 2:30, and I was able to join with many of the legislators, both on the Assembly and the Senate side, and we had some remarks from the senator who represents that area, Susan Rubio, and the Assembly member from the Monterey Park area, which was Mike Fong. And it's just a very tragic incident. And as we were speaking, it was mentioned on the news that of the others that were injured, we lost another one. So there's 11 lives now that have been lost in that tragic incident that took place, and it happened to coincide with their Lunar Year celebration, which is really tragic. But I just wanted to put that out there, and I know many of us here are all thinking about those families, and our thoughts and prayers with those folks. And then only to find out when I was talking to the senator from that area last night, Susan Rubio, she mentioned that there was another shooting right here in Half Moon Bay, which is closer to us here in Sacramento. And I understand, I think there's 7 folks that were lost lives there. So I just wanted to open up our meeting recognizing those individuals that lost their lives. With that, let me
Chair, if
let
I
me go with
might-
my vice chair, Ms. Lewis.
If I might comment on that as well. Obviously, this is a repeated situation in California, and repeated just within 48 hours, 2 shootings. And there are many people who say, well, you know, why should we do something here in our community? It hasn't impacted us. And the long reach of these tragedies really mean that we will all be impacted. In particular, children who are growing up in a very unstable world and are impacted by the trauma of these experiences. As the chair mentioned, yesterday afternoon there was a second shooting in Half Moon Bay that's in my home neighborhood, and it's a quintessential quiet beach town in California. And it is just beyond horrific to see that there were 7 people who were engaged as farm workers who were killed, and because it was in a rural setting, in the farm setting, there were children present who witnessed this. And this ongoing drumbeat of occurrences, I think, can't be treated as individual phenomenon. And sometimes I feel that that's the first thing that we go to. Why did the shooter do this? When the fact is that there are just simply too many guns in our state and in other states. And California does have much more protective laws than other states, but guns come across our state borders. And what has really come to my realization is that we do need to have licensing of gun owners. And we need more funding to take firearms away from people who never should have had them in the beginning. We need more funding for our law enforcement and the special teams that go in at great risk to themselves to take care of those situations. And we also need local communities to realize their power. And one report that I'm going to be passing out to the local communities in my district is from the Gifford Center, and they have really a menu of different options that local communities can pursue. And this is a legal mesh that is more protective when it is tighter, and we need all local communities, all counties, our state government, and if we can ever get them to do it, the federal government, to act on this, because hopes and prayers are very nice when there's a natural disaster, a wildfire, a flood, but these aren't natural disasters. They're unnatural, out of time and out of order deaths that should not have occurred. And in each one of these instances, there are also people who get horrific injuries. So when we adjourn today, I'd like to adjourn in memory of the victims of gun violence, but also in respect and recognition for the members of law enforcement who risk their lives, the family members who many times have to care for grievous injuries and disabilities over many, many years. And in respect and recognition of the pain suffered by survivors, there's a part that we can all play to stop this terrible, terrible plague from taking place, and we just have to do it.
Thank you for those opening remarks. Member Schaefer, I think has some.
I always tend to have a sense of humor. I always tend to have a sense of humor in life, but there's nothing at all funny about the current life that we're living here. I have two children that are married, but my two sons, neither one of them wants to bring a baby into the world because the world is in such sad state. All the tragedy we've seen here sort of pales to Mexico next door. They've had 15 journalists killed in the last year, and they've had 500 people a year being murdered. I can't see anybody going down there, to visit in that terrorism. Miss Lieber's district is famous for some of the worst in history. A U.S. congressman that she had went down to Jonestown and lost his life, and Jackie Spear was down there with him and survived and served with distinction in the U.S. House. I read 3 newspapers every day, and that's getting harder and harder to do. But I just want you to know I appreciate very much her remarks, and that we are taking notice today of how the world is slowly falling apart, and I hope we can do something to get it straightened. Thank you.
Member Gaines.
I've got some comments for eternal memory that I will reserve for the end, unless you feel we should do it now.
It's up to you. You want to do it opening or closing? What's more appropriate for you?
Well, I'll do them during the closing,
Okay.
but I would like to speak to these
Sure.
these violent crimes that have occurred, and they're just they're evil. It's evil in nature in terms of what's happening here, and I think there's a lot of different aspects on the issue. It's complicated in many ways, but there seems to be some real challenges in terms of what's happening to our society, and are we experiencing a degradation of love for one another, and the ability to help people out. What is it that leads someone to use a gun and actually murder someone, and why isn't, how does a society intervene in something like that and prevent that from happening? And I think there's some mental health aspects to this. I think there's family, perhaps in some cases, not all, but family structure issues where maybe a parent is not in communication, or other family members, and that there's a level of awareness that's needed by close friends and family for people that may be contemplating these very violent acts. And I don't think our media and movie industry help us either, because it's glorified so much. And I don't know. It's just it's a very difficult issue, but I think we need to take a real close examination of it and figure out how we reduce violence in America. So, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, our Deputy Controller wants to wait. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Vasquez. My heart has been heavy these past few days. As a community, we were mourning the lives lost in Southern California, and to waking up to even more tragedy and senseless gun violence. It's time for us as a state and the leaders here on this board to step up and really determine how we can put forward policy that creates a safer California, a California where we can all lock arms and have our families, our children, be able to go to school, go to the movie theaters, and enjoy their lives without this fear of a mass shooting happening. And it's something that my thoughts and prayers go out to those families affected, and I'm with you today, and I'm going to continue to pray and work with these members to really move some policy forward to make sure that this never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Ms. Cicchetti, let's get back on schedule here with the agenda.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is item 3, adoption of board meeting minutes. The board meeting minutes of December 13th, 2022. The meeting minutes were attached to the agenda for your consideration.
Members, is there any comments or corrections to the minutes as presented? If not, I would like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by the vice chair, second by member Schaefer. If there's no other comments, Ms. Cicchetti, do we have any comments, written comments on this?
We have no written and no one in the audience. Let me go out to the AT&T moderator.
Thank you.
AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
And if you would like to make a public comment, it is 1 then 0 at this time. And there are no lines in queue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cicchetti, if you would please call the roll on
Yes.
this motion.
Chair Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lieber,
I'll abstain, as I was not present on that date.
Member Gaines.
Aye.
Member Schaefer,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Emron.
Aye.
So we have a majority vote on that, and with that, the minutes were approved. Ms. Cicchetti, if you would continue with the next item.
The next item on the agenda is item 4, public comments on matters not on the agenda. Persons who wish to address the State Board of Equalization regarding items not on the agenda may do so under this item on the agenda. Please note that the board cannot take action on any items not on the agenda. However, the board can schedule issues raised by the public for consideration at future meetings.
Ms. Cicchetti, do we have any written comments on this?
We've not received any written comments, or no one is in the audience. Let me go out to the AT&T moderator.
Okay.
AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
We have no lines in queue.
Thank you.
Hearing no comments and seeing no written comments here today, or presented to us today, Ms. Cicchetti, if you please call our next item.
The next item on the agenda is item 5, Executive Director Matters. 5A, Organizational Update. Reports on the status and pending upcoming organizational priorities. This matter is presented by Ms. Stowers.
Welcome, Ms. Stowers.
Good morning. Still morning?
Still morning, yes.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Vasquez, honorable members. I am Yvette Stowers, Executive Director. First of all, my congratulations to Chair Vasquez and Vice Chair Lieber on your election, and I look forward to working with you and the entire board this year. Congratulations, Member Sally Lieber, who is joining the board, representing the 2nd District. I also want to welcome Deputy Controller for Taxation, Hasib Amram, who will represent Controller Cohen, and is no stranger to the BOE. Welcome all. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And members, with your permission, I'd like to go over a couple of notable historical dates for January. January 10th, 1864, George Washington Carver, inventor and scientist, was born. January 12th, the Congressional Black Caucus was organized in 1971. January 15th, the fabulous and wonderful civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born. On that same date in 1908, the fabulous Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was founded at Howard University, one of our black universities, and the sorority, our first black sorority. January 20th, 2009, Barack Obama was sworn in as the first African-American president. 12 years later, Kamala Harris was sworn in as the first African-American and Indian vice president. She's also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. I thought about twice about saying this one, but I think it's still appropriate, even with the violence. January 26, Angela Davis, activist, was born in 1944. And for you sports fans, January 31st, 1990, Jackie Robinson became the first was born in 1990, and he is known as the first African-American Major League Baseball player, number 41. 42? Oh, I added that part in myself. Number 42. Okay, that's our history for the day. Now, I would like to start my report, starting with a reflection of 2022. As your board secretary and agency executive director, I am and continue to be thankful and appreciative of your leadership and support to move this agency forward. I am grateful and honored to work with a team of extraordinary superstars, the employees of the State Board of Equalization, whose professionalism, expertise, and dedication to successfully administer our programs continue to impress me daily. Thank you all, Team BOE. Staff has been reporting on their progress and work activities throughout the past year, and now I would like to highlight some of our 22 accomplishments. Starting with Board Proceedings and Support Services Division. Board Proceedings Support Services hosted the annual meeting of the State Board of Equalization County Assessors in October. And as a thanks to Board Proceedings and our partners at CDTFA Media Production Team, I would like to highlight that they have successfully facilitated 9 in-person hybrid public board meetings, managing a range of services needed for in-person meetings with available remote access, in addition to 3 hearings performed 100% remotely using Microsoft Teams. Board Proceedings and Support Services has prepared and submitted 111 purchase contract requests, prepared and facilitate and submitted 42 hiring packages, and completed the onboarding of 22 employees new to the state. These hiring packages and onboarding is part of our commitment for recruitment and successful workforce development or workforce planning. Now, later on, Ms. Winati will give more details about our recruitment efforts and workforce planning, as she does on a monthly basis. Now, let's talk about the State Assessed Property Division. This division produced and prepared the 22 board row of state assessed property with a total assessed value over $136 billion, and transmitted the values to the 58 county assessors, representing approximately $2.16 billion in property tax revenues for our schools and local governments. Produced, prepared for adoption, and billed the 2022 private railroad car tax roll for a total amount of over $9.7 million that would go to the state general fund. They successfully completed 18 state assessed property appeals, completed 9 property tax audits, and physically inspected and valued over 10,000 state assessed land parcels. Processed over 1,000 statement of land changes and coordinated the corresponding assessment jurisdictions for each change with the 58 county assessors. Processed over 200 jurisdictional boundary changes, resulting in $532,000 in revenue for the state's general fund, and produced the 2022 valid tax rate area list with 61,365 rate tax areas. The County Assessed Property Division. They published 9 county survey samplings and issued 61 letters to assessors and 25 county assessors-only letters. Responded to over 15,000 property tax inquiries from our stakeholders by phone, web inquiries, letters, and fax. The division issued 340 permanent advanced appraiser certifications and 11 permanent advanced assessment analyst certifications. These certificates are only available after the required training classes are completed, the training classes that we produce to our county assessors and their staff. Additionally, in 2022, they provided training to 660 students in 19 different virtual courses and 7 in-person courses. 269 students class provided through American River College and Sacramento State University, and 411 students via self-study courses. They issued 886 organization clearance certificates and 564 supplemental clearance for the welfare exemption. That is an increase from 2021 of 326 additional organization clearance and 336 additional supplemental clearances. Members, as you know, this increase is a result of the good work we have did in our welfare exemption process improvement study, something that we have reported out on in 2021 and 2022. The County Assessed Division discovered and reported 338 change in control and 167 change in ownership to the county assessors, and updated the Assessors Handbook sections 531, 534, and 581. Next, members, is the Communication Department. As you know, the BOE's website is a critical tool in communicating and providing essential and up-to-date information to stakeholders and to the general public. The homepage of the BOE website has been modified to include 3 new graphics under the main banner, currently highlighting the Taxpayer Rights Advocate, Proposition 19, and disaster relief. The board members' webpage were also enhanced to have more modern look with additional features as the last update took place in 2019. A new career page, www.boe.ca.gov/careers, for those who are listening, was also established in 2022 to assist the workforce planning and recruitment efforts. Finally, through the board's leadership, BOE established a Translate web button to offer translation on non-limited English-speaking individuals. Currently, the web page alert button is highlighting today's board meeting and disaster relief for those impacted by the recent winter storms. Our Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing last year really showed us the level of public participation really coming from the communications departments in partnership with the TRA office and successfully and strategically promoting that event, promoting it and keeping taxpayers informed and stakeholders. And they did that through creating a very creative outreach toolkit, utilizing electronic communication and engaging partners in promoting the hearing. Recognizing the diversity of the state, the Communications Department has led in creating several new translation publications that contain general and statistic information, including Proposition 19 fact sheet in Spanish and Chinese, as well as several taxpayer rights information sheets on property tax savings. Last year, the BOE had over 70 social media posts on all of our channels and notified our followers of upcoming board meetings and hearings. updated Prop 19, information about BOE's responsibilities, the BOE's job opportunities, and other important information. Legislative Research and Stats Division, some of their accomplishments. The board sponsored SB 440, and this bill was signed into law. SB 4040 authorized the BOE to provide deadline extensions and penalty and interest relief to taxpayers under the alcohol and beverage tax when they are impacted by a governor-declared disaster. I'll say that again because we're living it now. So those impacted by the most recent storms, they will receive relief automatically. They don't have to ask for it. We just give it to them, and that's extremely important. The board also sponsored legislation included in SB 1495, which was signed to law, which, amongst other things, makes a technical correction to the RTC section 97.68 to correct references from BOE to CDTFA. And this was just mainly housekeeping. This section deals with allocation of sales and use tax revenue, something that BOE 1.0 did, and we just making it clear that that is a CDTFA responsibility. The board-sponsored legislation proposal included in SB 1496, which was signed to law, also amended RT section 3247.5 to extend the sunset date for the Offer and Compromise program for open and active businesses under the alcohol beverage tax law for an additional 5 years. It now sunsets January 1st, 2028. The division calculated the private railroad car tax rate and the 4R ratio and provided stats tables for the agency's upcoming 2021-22 annual report. Equal Employment Opportunity Office has been very successful, completed a biannual language survey as required by Government Code Section 7290. BOE Disability Advisory Committee successfully held its second virtual event hosted by Rachel Stewart, Workability Coordinator and Counselor for Los Rios Community College. In efforts towards diverse hiring, which is part of our workforce planning, the BOE recruitment participated in multiple recruitment fairs in 2022, including one which the BOE EEO officer participated in a career fair hosted by Los Rios Workability. Los Rios Workability helps students with disabilities and transition them into employment, into mainstream. The BOE EEO officer spoke about BOE's diversity and invited students to join the BOE. To help BOE staff transition back into the office, the BOE Equal Employment Officer created a collection of training on the following: returning to work, employee wellness, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The office also implemented annual training plans for which the purpose is to assist employees in their short and long-term professional development goals while aligning BOE training resources with BOE business, workforce goals, and strategic plan initiatives. Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office. The office completed approximately 290 taxpayer cases, providing response and resolving taxpayers' issues. Published the Taxpayer Rights Advocate's fiscal year 2020-21 annual report in February 2022. Held the annual Taxpayer Rights Bill of Rights hearing, August 2022. This provided the taxpayers the opportunity to speak before the elected board. In the area of taxpayer education, the office published 8 information sheets to assist taxpayers in understanding various exclusions and base year value transfer topics. The first 4 published information sheets address parent-child exclusion and grandparent-grandchild exclusion under the current law of Prop 19 and the prior law. The next 4 address the base year value transfer provision for seniors and disabled persons under Prop 19 and prior year. And finally, the legal department. The legal department issued 10 legal opinions on novel and complex property tax issues facing the 58 counties, responded to over 53 legal inquiries by providing resources and analysis to county assessment appeal boards and county assessors and the public, submitted 5 rulemaking process to the Office of Administrative Law, and had 1 case against the BOE closed and 12 additional cases dismissed. Members, this review of the 2022 accomplishments highlights the more significant work and accomplished, but by no means does it represent the full array of our work of this agency and the extraordinary staff. Again, I just want to applaud and commend them. Each year that passes, we leverage on the lessons learned and build upon our many achievements to fuel our success. We will continue to modernize, rebuild, and revitalize our agency so that we remain heavily valued, respected, and effective state agency, serving all of California. Members, I would like to thank you. Your leadership has been invaluable in continuing our modernization journey and helping to ensure that our taxpayers and stakeholders are well aware of who we are and our value to the state and local government. Are there any questions on our accomplishments?
I have several. Let me start with a couple, and then I'll turn it over to the members, and if they don't have as many as I do, I will come back. Let me start first with first of all, thank you for your overall presentation, especially your opening remarks, to remind us of the history that January has. You know, we all pretty much rely on, or we all pretty much celebrate the MLK celebration in our respective districts, and we forget about all the other accomplishments, not only in the sports area, but also in terms of inventions that took place by African Americans throughout our history. But you were, in your opening remarks, you were talking about the funding being proposed to deal with the affordable housing and homeless. You said it was about, I don't know if you gave the figure, but I heard it's around $6 billion in total.
Oh, I haven't gotten there yet. That's going to be when I do the governor's proposed
Oh,
budget.
you know what? I think I was thinking about our meeting we had.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll hold back. The only item then I'll bring up now is, you did talk about the exemption piece.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, as we're talking especially about the welfare exemption, has the department looked at the revenue loss, potential revenue loss, that the tax savings on property owners as a result of the developers taking advantage of the welfare exemption?
Let me see if good question. Have they looked at
The
assuming
cost,
the
the
cost
potential
to-
cost.
potential-
The loss, I guess.
Not that I know of. I'm sure when the welfare exemption was first enacted, there was a fiscal analysis and a projected revenue impact.
Okay.
But that provision has been on the books for quite some time.
So we
So
haven't,
we have not, as a department. Mr. Young, do we even track
he's
that?
coming up.
Help me.
Good morning, Chair Vasquez. This is David Young, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. Our department does not track that per se on an annual basis. We do get, as a matter of course, all the counties do report to us how much property tax has been exempted off the roll. But that figure is fairly inclusive. It includes other things than just affordable housing. So it includes things with entities that were granted exclusions, exemptions from taxation for either religious purposes, hospitals and whatnot. But the total number is reported on our annual report. So it is on there. If you wish, I can see if I can segregate that number out.
Yeah, I'd be curious, and I think the members might also be interested in that figure, if you're able to extrapolate that.
Yeah, it may take some doing, but we'll give it a shot.
Appreciate it. And actually, along those lines too, maybe this might be more of a question for you as well.
Okay.
You know, I'm looking at, in terms of the bigger developers, may be cognizant of the welfare exemption on affordable housing, for example. But I'm wondering if the smaller nonprofit organizations are in tune or have, or even aware that this exists. Because I know in talking to some of my small nonprofits, in conversation when they've come to me about just their funding for their projects and what possibly, because we've been having these hearings,
Yes.
especially on possible tax credits that we could provide. They brought up that they weren't even aware that their property, their current development possibly qualifies for this exemption. And I'm just wondering, and I know, looking in the audience here, seeing Peter Kim's done a great job in terms of our website
Right.
and to make it as user-friendly as possible. But I'm wondering if there's a way to possibly do a little bit more in terms of getting the word out on the, especially for the nonprofits, because many of these small nonprofits, they usually operate in such a silo that they're really not doing, they don't have the resources or the staffing to stay on top of all the bills and potential savings that they could afford it to them as they're developing their housing projects. Go ahead, I'm
If we
sorry.
don't already have a fact sheet on welfare exemption,
We do, right?
I'm not sure if we do,
Oh.
but we will investigate, and if we don't have one, we will design one, and then that could be part of your toolkits when
Perfect.
you're out.
Appreciate
being
it.
ambassadors.
Absolutely.
That'd be
Yes.
great. With that, I'll hold my other comments till the later part of your presentation. But let me open it up. I know I think Vice Chair Libra has a couple of questions, and I think other members as well.
Well, I also love the history moments that you presented to us. I hope you keep that up. There'll be some pressure to do it each meeting, but it's a wonderful part of U.S. history to be recognized. And I also really appreciate hearing about all of the work that's been completed and all of the work with taxpayer rights that's been completed. And it really spoke to me when you mentioned the legislation to just extend the considerations to taxpayers on an automatic basis, rather than expecting someone who's been impacted by circumstances to come forward and have to know how to request that. I think that's especially sensitive and important to be doing that. And I think from what I hear from folks in my communities, trying to get their hands around Prop 19 is a major thing for them, and in particular for the families who have a special needs trust and are looking at how to convey property and what the situation is. And in the Bay Area, I think we have just about the highest home values of any place in the world. And so if, when we're doing some of the electronic outreach, if we can maybe connect with some of the disability rights groups and provide them with the Prop 19 fact sheets, and maybe they'd like to put it out to their followers, I think that would help to clear up a lot of the concern that's out there, and also have the community come forward with their suggestions as we move through implementation of Prop 19. And I love to hear about 209 cases resolved. Yeah, that's really where it's at, is making sure that our constituents aren't left alone to find their own way out of the forest, so to speak, but have individuals within the agency that are working directly with them. So I really very much appreciate that, and I would also be very interested to get the data on where the exemptions are coming from, if there's a way to break that out. I think that would be valuable. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Member Gaines.
Yeah, thank you for your introductory comments about Black history. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to make a few comments that are adjourned in memory. But thank you for the presentation. You mentioned disaster relief. Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of what would be available to our constituents, given the latest storm damage we've had?
As it relates to property tax?
And if you want to,
I would do a high level, but,
should we wait until?
Mr. Young,
Great, thank you.
he could go into, I know it's section 170, but.
Right.
Yes. Well, David Young again, Deputy Director of Property Tax Department. With the recent advent of storm damage and flooding and whatnot, the disaster relief is actually, it's on the forefront of many affected folks' mind right now. So we do have on our website a lot of information on disaster relief. We have information sheets available for anybody who is affected by it or interested in it. But most importantly, if I can convey something to anybody now who is affected by this disaster relief, to please, while the board has oversight function, the actual benefits of disaster relief for property tax purposes is administered locally through the county assessor. Please contact your local county assessors. The application is through them. The granting the relief is through the county levels. We can act as a resource, and we've had quite a spike in inquiries from our technical services section. So a lot of people have been calling in. We've done some outreach. We've tried to tell them this is what's available out there, but in the end, the final application has to be made locally. So please contact your local county. Not only is the disaster relief, the property tax component there, but they also have information and of services available for a whole variety of assistance. So that's, in the end, that's kind of where we always try to lead them back, is to the counties.
That's great.
Of course.
Is there anything that we can do at the BOE in terms of public service announcements, something beyond what we're providing on our website, directing them to their county assessors?
We have done that with the communications department. As we are currently living into one right now.
Okay.
We first wait, we respect the assessor, and we wait for the assessor to do a news release. And then once the assessor does a news release, and they're generally doing it through social media, we will follow their lead.
Okay.
And then we piggyback. We currently have one out for LA County, and there's another county in Vice Chair Lieber's district.
Okay. Are we communicating with the assessor offices?
We do.
We do.
Yeah,
We do.
so
Yeah.
we know what they're up to.
We know what they're up to,
And then we
yes.
can kind of
Yeah,
follow up.
we don't know what they're up to,
Follow
but
up.
we know what they're up to. Our pages, when you look at the information that we have out there, they look very similar to what the assessors. It looks the same because it is the same information. Only difference with our page, we also have a link that would give you all of the governor's declared disasters,
Right.
going all the way back.
Good, wonderful. I just want to make sure that people know that it's available.
It's available,
Yeah.
and what normally happens when they go out to wherever the county is, once it's safe, there's always a center held and organized through FEMA, and the assessors and their staff is there providing them with the information that they need. Same
Seen that in
thing
some
with
of
our
our
other.
wildfires.
Yes, yeah, the same thing with the wildfires, and
yeah.
our other sister agencies will be there as well, because, taxes are taxes. So it's a major problem for income tax and sales tax. And a lot of times, you guys are there,
Good.
making it known. So if you're going and you need some pamphlet, let us know,
Good.
and we will get some printed for you. It takes some leeway time. It's not a 24-hour service, but we can get something printed for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Schaefer.
Ms. Stars, nice you mentioned Howard University. I got to know Kurt Schmoke, who used to be the dean of law school there, and he went on to become the mayor of Baltimore, and now he's the president of University of Baltimore, and it's quite a school. And then Morgan State had Kwasi Nfumi as its chairman of the board after he retired before going back into the Congress. So there's a lot of history there, and I stay up with it.
Good, good, good.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, Ms. Stowers, I'll let you continue.
Thank you for the picture.
This is interesting.
Okay. The governor's budget.
Okay, let's hear it.
Members, as you know, the governor released his proposed fiscal year 2023-24 state budget on Tuesday, January the 10th. The full budget summary and fact sheets are available online. However, I will provide a few highlights from the reports for you today.
Doesn't surprise you.
The revenue outlook is substantially different than seen in the last 2 years. Prior to accounting for solutions, the governor's budget forecast general fund revenue would be $29.5 billion lower than at the 2022 budget act projections, and Californians now face an estimated budget gap of $22.5 billion for the 2023-24 fiscal year. The governor's office reported that the 2023-24 state budget proposal maintains the state's unprecedented investment in California while fortifying the state's strong fiscal foundation and economic revenues uncertain ahead, aimed at economic revenues uncertainties ahead. Despite slowdown impacting the state's economic revenue outlook this year, the state commitment to building reserves and budget resiliency over the last several years enables the 23-24 state budget proposal to sustain key investments reflecting the values and priorities of Californians. This includes major funding to transform our education system, address homelessness crisis and housing affordability, increase healthcare access, tackles the climate crisis, keeps California safe, and expand economic development and growth across the state. In the current budget proposal, the BOE funding remains the same at 193.6 position. Let's just go ahead and call it 194. And approximately 38 million will be, and funding of approximately 33 million. We will continue to monitor the budget process and keep you informed if there are any changes made to BOE. Before I move to my next topic, questions regarding the budget.
Let me go back to the one I was hearing about, and I think you kind of hit on it, that it's roughly about $6 billion in total for the affordable housing front. I was just wondering, is there any specific time frame or window for spending these funds? Or are you hearing anything that might be earmarked?
Since it's just his proposed budget, and it would have to, go through the legislators for debate, there's no time frame yet. As for the 23-24 fiscal year, and the budget must be enacted by June 30th.
June 30th.
June 15th. I would ask my ledger guy to come up here, but I don't have one. So, June 15th.
I believe it's the 15th.
Yeah, everyone's not at June 15th. So we don't have the projected when the numbers. But
we'll be tracking that, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will
so.
track that as they go through the budget process.
Any other questions? Oh, sure, go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you, Executive Director Stowers, for that presentation. And I understand that the highlights were regarding the Board of Equalization. Some practices that have been done in the past is the controller, bringing somebody from the Department of Finance to make a very comprehensive overview of the budget. And I will work with the controller to reach out to DOF and get this presentation scheduled for February, just so we all as a board have this understanding of entirely this $200 billion plus budget and the ins and outs of it. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Lieber.
That would be very welcome to hear from the Department of Finance, and I know that the legislature and the governor have been very ambitious in the recent years.
Yes.
You know, particularly on getting people housed and throughout our state, and I know that LA County is a very impacted county in terms of housing. And so I'll be very interested, and I'm sure my colleagues will as well, on how this all unfolds and what we're expecting to see in the May revise in terms of income coming into the state and how that'll be impacted. The tech sector, while smaller in numbers than some other sectors, I think has been a great producer of revenues for our state over the years. So it's kind of a multiple whammy, I think, potentially this year. And from everything that I'm hearing, the size of the budget hole is growing. So we'll be very interested in ongoing information about that and the impact on housing in particular, which I think is probably the biggest challenge that we face as a state right now.
Thank you. No, I forgot that we have done that the last couple of years, and it's been really helpful. Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah, no problem, Chair Vasquez, and I'll work with the controller and reach out to the governor's administration and work, of course, with Executive Director Stowers to get that on schedule. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
like that.
Member Gaines, yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
appreciate Hasid's comments. Thank you for bringing that up. But that ought to be a matter of routine, and I think
It should be.
maybe that's what you're saying, is that why isn't it, every, we'll pick the month, but we bring Department of Finance in to give us a review. I know we've done it in years past.
We have.
But I'm not sure if we've done it every year.
We've done it
So-
since your term.
Okay.
We've done it.
All right.
We've been able to reach out to the Department of Finance.
Okay, so we've been
And it has
consistent. That's
been,
good.
informative. I will say this, as we work in partnership to get them to come, we always have that problem with the data that they present being accessible, ADA compliant. So it may take more than 30 days. No, the sooner you reach out to them and have someone, we have to work together. That's all I'm saying, is because they're going to have a presentation, and I know you guys are going to want to follow along. And we're going to want to put it on our pan, and my people to my left are going to be screaming at me. So,
Thank you. Understood and noted. Thank you, Executive Director.
Could I make one more comment, though, just in terms
Sure,
of?
go ahead.
Because I think we've done a good job in being careful with our budget, and
Oh, yeah.
Member Lieber, you've probably already been briefed, but we had vacancies, and we're filling those up. And it's taken a couple of years to do that. We're not at 100%, but there's always some turnover. So I'm glad we've been careful with our budget and just trying to kind of fill the vacancies that we have, and we'll have to see if we have other needs, but we've been able to accommodate Prop 19 by filling vacancies. And
We've been successful at that, too.
yes, we have, yeah. So,
yes, we're doing an excellent job in filling our vacancies. And the Department of Finance have taken note of that. Okay, any more questions on that?
I think we're good. Continue.
Okay, so my next topic. At the last month's meeting, we had a discussion about holding some of our board meetings outside the Sacramento location. And I was asked to provide some information about the feasibility, including the cost and logistic to hold a board meeting in other locations other than 450 N Street. So let me start. First, under Government Code Section 15609, the board is required to hold regular meetings each month at a time and place within the state as directed by the chairperson. At least one regular meeting must be held in Sacramento each quarter. In the past, when we had income and sales tax appeals, was decided by the board, our regular meetings, several of our regular meetings were held in Culver City, California. The purpose of holding those meetings in Culver City was to accommodate the taxpayers so that those who live in Southern California did not have to come all the way to Sacramento to have their case heard and decided. Because that was a major function of the BOE at the time, we had a permanent building in Culver City to facilitate those meetings, and we also had funding for it. With the change of us, we no longer have a huge travel budget to move outside of the Sacramento location for a meeting. However, as you know, in 2019, we did hold 2 informational hearings outside of Sacramento. One was in San Diego County and one was in Santa Clara County. Both of those meetings, the chair of the information hearings partnered with the various county assessors, and we were able to secure a facility at minimum to zero cost. We were also able to use their media services. By doing it that way, it kept our costs down. In addition, one of those meetings, the one in San Diego, took place the day following the county assessors conference, and all of you guys were at that conference, and so was most of the property tax division and the executive director. I was there too, but I was wearing a different hat. I got myself confused for a minute. But with that being said, if we were to decide, if the chair was to decide to have a meeting outside of Sacramento, we need to be aware that it would cost us money to rent a site. It would cost us money for media services to provide the streaming. We will incur travel. Board proceedings would have to travel, and there's currently, I estimate 6 to 7 of them will have to go. And they will have to go the day before to set everything up. And we'll conduct a meeting, assuming it would be a one-day meeting. And then they would stay, even if we finished the meeting at 5, they would stay that night and in order to shut everything down and come back the following day. They would stay that night because it's actually cheaper for it to incur additional hotel stay versus overtime. Legal chief counsel will have to attend. The taxpayer rights advocate must attend. That she's our advocate. You never know. A taxpayer may have a complaint, and we always have our advocate readily available. Our communication chief will have to attend, just in case there are any media inquiries. Now, we need to note that for this fiscal year, 2022-23, we do not have a travel budget for board proceedings. So, in short, to travel outside of Sacramento, and if we don't partner with someone to get a 0 to free facility, the cost for travel is estimated at $45,400. And the cost for facility, media services, and security is estimated at $23,462, for a total estimated cost of $68,862. That's assuming that we do not partner with someone to get the cost down. Should a decision be made to go outside of Sacramento, it will require a great deal of planning. Even if we have a free facility, it is still considered a contract, a zero-based contract, but a contract, and we would have to go through the Department of General Services. But with that being said, we have been successful with holding our meetings here at 450 N Street and having people participate remotely. I do believe the work groups that we did towards the end of the year showed that it can happen, and they were very successful. That concludes my report on holding meetings outside of 450 N Street. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have some comments.
Member Schaefer.
Thank you for your presentation on that. I'm sorry it's not in writing, but I've made some notes because Cody had to leave early. The fact we no longer have a travel budget doesn't impress me. That's really not your control or our control, but this could be unanticipated necessities come up, and for a group that oversees $80 billion, I'm not impressed with spending another $50,000 either way to do our job. And as you point out, partnering with other sources, one thing, though, that does surprise me is you talk about taxpayers' representative, Mr. Nancho, and Peter Kim must attend. Well, you know, back when they were setting up how we do our business, there was no such thing as Zoom meetings. I am very impressed at how so many people that talk to us by Zoom. I've had Lisa Thompson, our taxpayers' representative, being here in the building talking to us for whatever reasons. I thought she's here in the building, but she would appear only on Zoom, which she's entitled to do sometimes for just cause or even no cause. And we're not really allowed, I don't think, to ask her why she does that. So I know that Mr. Kim and Mr. Nanjo and herself could very well appear and field any answers from any questions that might arise. Peter Kim's questions, I think, tend to come from us and not the public because, you know, they're not concerned with how he does his business. We are. And I really have full confidence in all of our very fine staff being in San Diego by Zoom. We might let them go to San Diego and have a hotel room and an airplane fare if they want to go to the beaches or something, see our San Diego Zoo, which, as you know, I have free passes for every day, which I, you know, would see they had a good time there. You say it takes a great deal of planning. Well, I'm not planning that we do this just for 2023. I've got 4 years to rattle cages here, and I expect us to rotate meetings in 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. We had 2 meetings in the last 4 years out of town. Since the law says that we can have 16 of our 48 meetings in Sacramento and 32 of them out of town, I'm not asking we do that, although I think there's some members, some staff that would like to live and work in San Diego and Los Angeles. I'm asking that we have 2 or 3, at least a quarter of the meetings every year. So the great deal of planning that we're doing now to have at least 3 of our meetings out of Sacramento would apply for next year, the year after, and the year after that. I wasn't sent up here by 10 million people and his 10 million people, 20 million of us, to sit and look at the status quo. I think it's our duty to see how we do business. And I don't think we're serving Southern California if we pretend we're back in the 1900s where everything is done in Sacramento. I have cases before the Supreme Court of California, and they meet in Los Angeles, would you believe? Their headquarters is in San Francisco. The old building is in Sacramento, but when the Supreme Court decides to dance around the state as a convenience to the public that wants to go hear them, I think we must take note. This is 2023, not 1940, and I'm asking that you come up with having, I would say, at least, if not the 32 meetings, at least we have maybe 6 meetings a year out of Sacramento. And I would nominate Orange County, San Diego County, and Los Angeles County because there are huge populations there. There are students of taxation that might like to come to watch us to see just how we do business. There are taxpayers that may have some questions that don't feel they can afford to go to Sacramento and they're too intimidated by Sacramento. Claude Parrish is agreeing with me as assessor for Orange County that when he was Board of Equalization member, they had several out-of-state, Sacramento meetings. He said the Orange County Board of Supervisors would probably provide their grand place for us to have a meeting for a day or two. Because if it were available, why not use it? In fact, it's in the public interest that these big, gorgeous, beautiful facilities the taxpayers provide that be used to the maximum. So if it's used only once a week for a board meeting of some type, maybe we can go down there and get it once or twice a month for a two-day meeting. So I think this is a very important issue. Maybe that's why you didn't elect me to be chairman, because you knew I just might decide to order the meeting in Southern California. No, I'm not that strong-willed. I feel the board is the king and not the chair. But I'm making a good pitch on behalf of Mr. Vasquez and myself, whether he wants to be represented or not. I think I have a duty to say that Southern California is making some noise, and we expect to see us, if not half the time, at least a third of the time, or a quarter of the time. So let's plan something a quarter of a time or a third of the time to be out of Sacramento, and if we can tie it into when there's a assessor meeting or some other event, more power to us. I think that we are a little-known agency, and I think if we show up in Los Angeles or Orange County or San Diego, the media is going to give us some publicity. Mr. Kim will notify the colleges there that maybe some of their students or grad students would like to come meet us. I would be sure that the television stations and radio and newspapers were all notified, so they might want to interview these celebrities from Sacramento. I think really it'd be important for the overall image. And, you know, even if my colleagues aren't going to say so, I think they agree with me. Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer. I understand your concern. I would defer to the chair and his direction of whether or not we should have a meeting outside of Sacramento, and with the understanding that we do need to be mindful of costs, and we should have a business purpose for going there like we did when we were going to Culver City.
I think it'd be a good habit.
I think I shared this with you in our one-on-one, that I am definitely open to this, and I'll turn to my colleagues as well and see if they have a preference. And I know when we started the hearings, I was scheduled to host one actually in Santa Monica, and COVID hit, and we kept pushing it back and back. So if nothing else, I'm still committed to doing that, and I'll work with you. And I know, in terms of a budget cost, I'll do everything on my part if I have to raise the money, especially on the housing front, because I know staying in Santa Monica is very expensive, but I'll work with you and the hotel industry to make sure that it's within our budget for the government rates. Outside of that, I would be open to it, but definitely sensitive to our budget constraints. And it sounds like this thing wouldn't take place, even if we all agreed it's not going to happen at this fiscal year. It probably wouldn't start until July 1, which I think there's probably an agreement on that. And I have no problem, especially on the one hearing that I put out there, I guess 2 years ago before the COVID, that would happen in Santa Monica. I'm still committed to that. And if it happens to land in July or August when we have our new budget, so be it. And let me ask my vice chair and anybody else.
I'm so pleased you mentioned Santa Monica. I'd love to have a meeting there, and I'm so
You're welcome.
pleased you mentioned that the hotel industry and the chambers of commerce kick in some money, because having been a councilman, I know they kicked in money to bring anybody to town, and they'd love to have us. We're prestige people.
Yes. Vice Chair Lieber.
Well, I for sure don't have any problem with going to Santa Monica for any reason. But I hope that maybe we could take an approach of developing a little bit more information and a little bit more thought about the costs. It's when we have a large percentage of the state budget that goes away. I think it's a difficult time to say, let's travel to some place. Sometimes, especially if it's a very nice place that you're traveling to, it can be misinterpreted. So I think developing a little more information and seeing where the nexus would be with ways that we could do something, I think would be good. You know, I think I'm sort of one of those liberal Democrats who's afraid of spending any money. And I really do feel like if you watch your pennies and nickels, the dollars will take care of themselves. But, you know, I think if we can find a nexus where there's a way to do something that would work and would be less expensive, and I think in particular, you know, as the subject of affordable housing comes up, there's an obvious strong relevance to LA and to the San Francisco Bay Area as well. But I hope that we can just develop a little more information before we commit to spending anything.
Appreciate it. Member Gaines, I believe, had some comments on this.
Yeah, I appreciate Member Lieber's comments, because we do need to be very cautious and careful, especially in what's looking like a reduced budget and potential recession. I don't know, but I think if we're careful, we might be able to look at it. I think, like you had mentioned, if we could get a free accommodation for the meeting itself, and then be careful on hotel costs. But we'd have to look at a budget and see, you know, how much is that going to cost. So I agree with you on that. But I think there's opportunities potentially for more informational hearings. I know that there are issues with Prop 19, and I think we could discuss potential fixes. You brought up the disability issue. We've heard a lot of complaints from our constituents in reference to that. Certainly housing. It might be nice to have a informational hearing on housing somewhere else than here, and take in that local input. And then we've talked about maybe the potential of working with small business. But I think if we did it occasionally and you kind of spread it around so that each member would get an opportunity to have a hearing in their own district. But I think we'd be careful about doing it too much just from a budgetary standpoint, because I know it's expensive when we're hauling 7 staff and then they're having to sit up for a meeting and all. So,
Yes. Thank you.
thanks.
Anybody else? And actually, just to kind of put closer to this, you know, my thoughts when we were originally going to do this hearing, especially in Santa Monica, you know, when I was the mayor of Santa Monica, I did a League of Cities event there, and I tied it into a tour. We did a nice bus tour so they could visit all the affordable housing. And this was also around affordable housing projects, not only in my city, but in the county at large. And I would be welcome to do that again. But I think what Vice Chair Lieber mentioned, you know, let's take a look at the budget and see when it might be appropriate. And if it pencils out, I'm all on board with it.
Okay, thank you, sir. I will work with your office as far as moving it forward, and location, facilities, time
The
of the
cost,
year,
everything.
cost. Duly note what you said, Vice Chair, the perception of when you travel to a luxury area and the time of the year, it might be best to push it to off-season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Member, Chair, 4 years ago, I mentioned the idea we might go down and visit Catalina and have a meeting there, because I used to own a hotel in Avalon, but taking a key from Ms. Lieber, you know, we should concentrate on urban areas where it's easy for the taxpayers who
Yes.
we represent to come squawk at us. I think we owe this to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Well noted.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
We will-
Ms.
Thank you. I understand we will work on it. We're starting the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sars.
I have.
I'll turn it back over to you, Ms.
Okay,
Dowers.
I've been up here a while.
It's okay.
I have one more item, and then maybe, no, but then let me just do my one
Go
item.
ahead.
Okay, okay, upcoming events. March 23rd, 2023, the California Taxpayers Association, Caltex, will hold their 97th annual meeting, and the members, you guys have been invited for the annual breakfast with the board members. This is a great opportunity to meet with business owners and corporate tax directors.
Will we be in town anyway? I'm trying to avoid a special trip.
I don't think that's a board meeting date, that it's a day or two before our board meeting.
If we could change the board meeting date to accommodate the breakfast, I would be for it.
Do we know the dates by any chance?
Okay, the board meeting date is March 21st, 22nd, and then the Caltax is March 23rd.
Well, that works.
Well, that's close enough, I think.
That's close enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
My birthday is March 25th.
There you go.
Do that too.
So, that's the date. The breakfast is in the morning. I'm sure Caltex have sent you out an invitation, but if they haven't, they will send, especially to Vice Chair Lieber. It's an annual event that we do, and we look forward to it. And this year, they are also going to have a roundtable discussion with all tax directors, including myself. And that would be a great opportunity for me to promote BOE. That is all that I have.
Members, any questions of any of the reports that we've heard so far from Ms. Stowers? If not,
12:20?
Ms. Chiketi, do we have any written comments on this?
No, we, when it comes to the executive director reports, we'll go at the end.
We'll go at the
After all
end,
the
okay.
reports are finished.
Let's go on to the next item. then.
Should we, it's 12:20, should we break for lunch, or do we have to, we have speakers coming up?
We have speakers
Okay,
coming.
yeah. Okay, Ms. Benatti is next.
Yes, that's right. The next item on the agenda is 5B, operational priorities and quarterly budget report. Report on the status of operational priorities and the BOE budget. This matter will be presented by Ms. Renati.
Good morning,
Welcome.
Chairman Vasquez and honorable members. I am Lisa Renati, the Chief Deputy Director of the Board of Equalization. Today I'll report on some of the operational priorities for the agency. The first item is our strategic efforts on BOE's workforce through 3 separate initiatives: our recruitments, our workforce development, and our succession planning. Regarding recruitments, we continue to actively fill our vacancies using proven recruitment approaches. Since our last meeting, we filled 8 vacant positions, 4 were new employees, and 4 were promotions of internal candidates. As Ms. Stowers mentioned previously, the management team has done an amazing job in the past year to recruit and fill our vacant positions, as evidenced by the 42 completed hiring packages that we submitted during the calendar year 2022. And also Support Services gets a big shout out too, because they were the ones doing all the paperwork processing. The next item is our workforce development. We bring a lot of staff on board, and we continue to implement our workforce development plans to ensure those staff and our managers have the tools and training they need so that they can grow in their roles. In addition to our traditional on-the-job training and our coursework courses, we have weekly team meetings. We're fostering mentor-mentee relationships. We're cross-training staff on multiple functions, so we don't have people siloed into one role. And we're also regularly including multi-level staff and managers in planning sessions. That way, all staff get to contribute and learn. And finally, as part of our succession planning, we are working to prepare staff for leadership roles, including offering resources that staff can build their career paths, whether they currently are a manager or they want to be a manager. We're providing in-depth training on specific subjects so those supervisors can have the tools they need in the future as they grow up through the ranks. Since we've been promoting people fairly quickly, we need to give that background. Before I continue to the next item, any questions or on workforce planning? Yes, Mr. Gaines.
Mr. Gaines, go ahead.
Am I jumping the gun in terms of recruitment?
No, I just talked, we had 8 packages submitted and approved. 4 were new employees and 4 were promotions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, there's been some outreach to college campuses.
Correct.
Is that, are we finding that fruitful?
So our recruitment events have been very fruitful. I think in calendar year 2022, we had 14 recruitment events, and those are in person. They're also, we do some online virtual events. We have gone to the local campuses at Davis and Sac State, but we're also participating in multiple universities throughout the state, knowing that people may want to move to Sacramento.
Sure.
And we are working with EDD, our partners at CDTFA. So we are actively recruiting. And we've actually also spent some money on some recruitment materials so that we can have something to pass out, and we're a visible force at the recruitment events.
Have we brought in some folks from the campuses?
We have hired people from the campus. I don't have those exact numbers, and we are working to add to our hiring Cal Careers account. How did you find out about this job? A Survey Monkey, of course, it's only going to be as good as those people that will push the button for us.
Yeah,
But we are bringing staff on board.
good. Is that something that you could report to us in the future in terms of just, I'm just curious as to how many have been hired off of campuses?
Well, the one thing you have to remember is our current classifications that we are working on as part of our workforce development planning is that we don't have any truly entry-level positions
Okay.
for our property auditor, appraiser, and
Sure.
appraiser positions. But we do have a junior property appraiser, we have some associate governmental program analyst positions, so a lot less positions, but we are working towards getting an entry-level position so that we can easily go to the university and recruit
Good.
people and then bring them into
Good.
the
We've talked
auditor
about that in the
appraisers.
past, haven't we, in terms
We're
of,
very close.
yeah, that's
But once-
encouraging.
I'm waiting till we hit that mark so that I can present it to you.
That's
as
great. Thank you.
accomplishment.
The next part, now, the next part of your presentation, were you going to get into, and you kind of touched on it, the mobility of moving individuals up, possibly up the rank?
Our upward mobility program,
Yes.
we are working on our upward mobility program, and our EEO officer is actively pursuing candidates, and those are our staffs that are in our tax tech position roles, our office technician roles, and helping them to see if they're interested in going and pursuing, the college courses needed for them to get into the professional roles, and we are working towards finding those candidates that are interested in it. It takes a little work from the candidate themselves, but we will help reimburse a portion of that, those college courses for them. So that is an active program going on at the BOE. And as far as our diversity recruitment programs, we are working out to reach to other groups with, different professional groups, diverse groups, so that we can get more people in the pipeline. So depends on how you're viewing upward mobility.
No, I think you kind of touched
Yeah.
on it. So, for example, like receptionists or clerks that you currently have, you're affording them that opportunity. Because I think somewhere in one of the reports, or you might be mentioning it a little later, it seems, we had talked about it, I guess, a couple of years ago, trying to get the community colleges more engaged in this identifying appraisers, right?
Yeah.
People to get into it, and I understand it doesn't seem to be as attractive as we thought it was going to be on the outset, although, I think part of it is just the outreach. And I'm just wondering, as you're looking at even your current staff, whether they're receptionists or clerks or at lower levels, if they are afforded the opportunity or maybe some kind of a career tracking that you would do with them, and it sounds like you're kind of hitting on that, and see if we can somehow entice them to get
Yes.
involved with what they would need to do to become appraisers.
And it's, in my previous life, there's multiple people that I've worked with to get to upward mobility. I know our EEO officer is very motivated to get those staff the information they need. And it's a definite partnership with the employee, their supervisor, and the agency to make sure that they have that opportunity. So it's our career work. If you look at our career page, we'll have our new intranet, we'll have it. So, and thank you for mentioning it, because I forget about the upward mobility program, but it is very important in our agency.
No, I was just thinking about it as I was looking at other reports, and especially on our efforts with working with the community colleges. I noticed it's been a little bit of a tough one to get people, especially students, excited about becoming appraisers. I think a lot of them it's just not, you're very attractive, like being an attorney or a doctor, but yet it's, I think, a very good potential career for some of these individuals.
Well, we think it's a great career, and so
Right.
all of us were talked into coming here, so here we are.
Thank you. Unless there's other questions, I'll let you continue.
Okay, so my next item is a report on our current budget for the fiscal year. BOE's funding is provided by the general fund. Our current working appropriation for the entire agency provides 193.6 positions for support and operation of our tax programs. The majority of our budget, about 86%, is for personal services, that is employee benefits and salaries. The remaining 14% of the BOE's budget provides for the BOE's operating expenses and equipment. We call it OE&E. Typical expenses for OE&E include facility lease payments, probably the majority of our OE&E, utilities, telecom, travel, purchases of new equipment and supplies, and training. Based on the most recent expenditure reports available for December 2022, we are projected to spend almost 85% of the amounts appropriated to the agency. We expect this number to increase as we fill our vacancies. And this last year, we had a few retirements, so our number is still at 85. This concludes my report on the agency's day-to-day operational priorities. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, it looks like we have Member Schaefer first. Go ahead.
Ms. Renati, I was listening to your comments on the budget, waiting for you to throw out a dollar figure, and you were talking about percentages of this and number of employees. Could you give us a dollar amount?
I can. For the entire agency, because it's public information, the entire agency's budget is $33,854,000. Of that, $29,263 is our for personal services, and $4,591,000 is our OE&E budget.
I like to submit that out of the 33 million, we can well find the $50,000 to have a meeting down south, especially if we get a little help from chambers of commerce and tourism bureaus and the like. I just was excited to let you know that me having a meeting every couple of months someplace else or every 3 months, we can afford it. Thank you.
Any other comments from any of the other members? Oh, Member Gaines, go ahead.
If I could, yes. In reference to the staffing issue, are we still, I know that we were, what's considered normal for employment within a state agency? What percent?
Depends on when if we were at 10%, a lot of people would say that would be wonderful, but
Yes. Yeah.
with an aging workforce, knowing that we have retirements and have to pay out unfunded liabilities, it'd be very difficult for us. We'd be very close to the line every year.
Yeah.
So about 14 to, we're currently at 17.
Yeah.
About 15 probably would be comfortable for me, knowing that if people retire, we do have to pay out their leave credits.
Right.
We try to
Okay.
keep those down through monitoring people's leave balances, but
But I think that's similar to other state agencies from
Correct.
what you had told me in the past. So we're doing pretty well.
we're doing well. I want to be perfect. We're working towards that.
Yeah.
But we know that, we're funded for our positions at the midline, and as we have a lot of new staff, but as they stay on board, we're hoping to retain those staff.
Sure.
Then we'll get closer and closer to our budget.
We've had
limits.
a lot of baby boomers retire. We had the transition with the separation and the creation of CDTFA. So we've made huge strides, and I'm encouraged by that. So thank you.
Thanks.
Just along those lines, and I think you kind of touched on it, we're just wondering, do we have the capacity moving forward with potential retirements? Because I know there's a payout on some of these. And obviously, that impacts your budget.
It does impact our budget, and we have to be creative and be careful of our spending, because the majority of our spending is for personal services. So that's why we monitor people's leave balances. We ask them to reduce them. We sometimes kind of forcefully nudge to reduce their leave balances because they need to be low. But it's still, if a person leaves, it does hit our budget. And every budget, it's a budget decision of where you're going to spend your money. And we have those that we have to spend money on, and other things that will be a decision to be made.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands up, continue. Or if that's
That
it,
concludes my operational priorities budget report. So,
thank you. Ms. Chikati, do we have any other item? Well, I think that was it for this item, no?
No, yeah, for Ms. Renati, but it is 12:30. I don't know if you guys are all in agreement. Maybe we could take a lunch recess at this time and.
Well, actually, let me ask Steph, how are we feeling here? Because just in terms of agenda management, just so you know, we basically have this item and then what I was considered the L item, but now I guess it's number 6. The 3 items I put on, myself and Member Gaines were prepared to present these today, but at the request of our controller, and I'm sure the deputy controller here is aware of this, she had asked if it was possible to table those until our February meeting. And we've notified at least our speakers that we had on hold, and if there's no other information, I was wondering maybe instead of taking a longer break, we could take a shorter break if we need to take a break. If not, we can try to finish up these items and then call it a day, because those 3 items were pretty much where we're going to handle after lunch, if I'm not mistaken.
So all 3 are being postponed?
I'm sorry?
All 3 items are being postponed?
Yes. The controller wanted to weigh in on the 3 and wasn't, I guess, I'm sure she's overwhelmed with all her other responsibilities and duties as a newly elected controller. So I just wanted to be sensitive to that.
I understand. I still have to have my staff take a
No,
brief
that's what I'm
lunch.
asking. Because I know originally we were going to take a longer break and then come back, but I'm open to whatever is
You're
convenient for
suggesting we
staff.
do a brief break now and finish the item so we can terminate the meeting, say, within an hour.
No.
I appreciate that, but let me hear from staff.
We have to take a 30-minute lunch break.
Perfect. Why don't we do that instead of an
Okay,
hour?
great. Yeah.
Why don't we do
Wonderful.
that? Is that sufficient? Okay. I just want to be sensitive to the workers. So while we do that, we could take it now, and then we can come back and finish this item, and then open it up for
Yeah.
any public comments we might have.
I find-
So we'll stand adjourned. It's 12:35. We'll come back at 1:05. How's that?
We'll recess for lunch.
We'll recess for lunch.
Great.
you.